Naturally, as a Zelda theorist, I must give you all timeline placement theories for The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. And I do have creative ideas for you all on where Nintendo can put this game on the Zelda timeline. I would like to say that I also have other timeline placement theories, including one placement in the adult timeline, and when that video comes out, I'll link to it in the top right corner. But for now, let's observe my large theory changing the understanding and design of the downfall timeline. In the initial trailer for Echoes of Wisdom, it's clear that the world is akin to A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, with the Eastern Palace placed to the east of Hyrule Castle, and with these iconic rock formations in between, showing the clear connection this layout has with the world of those previous games. There are other connections as well that people have discovered, including the location of Lake Hylia to the southeast, which replicates the location of this lake in Echoes of Wisdom. So from the geography, which by the way Zelda games didn't really follow well until recently, it shows us that this game has a definite setting related to Link to the Past, Link Between Worlds. Of course, we cannot call it a day because there are returning characters with certain designs that make this conversation larger. A lot of you might already be familiar with this Zelda trivia, so I'll try to go through it quickly before presenting the verdict on timeline placement. First, let's look at the Great Deku Tree. This giant tree spirit of the forest character has never been in a 2D Zelda game specifically. There was another great talking tree in the Oracle games, but it's not a Deku Tree, nor is it a Deku Tree with this specific design. This design for the Deku Tree is very akin to that of Ocarina of Time. Yeah, I know, big shocker, but things keep getting more interesting. Next are the presence of Deku business scrubs. These guys have only appeared with this specific design in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, sort of. Yeah, no shocker there as well, but now here are the Gerudo. The Gerudo have never appeared in the Downfall timeline, or really any other games at all, other than Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Four Swords Adventures. Four Swords Adventures is also a weird example because that game all of a sudden brings them back into Hyrule after they've been missing in the child timeline with Twilight Princess. As we know, Four Swords Adventure supposedly is chronologically after Twilight Princess. But now let's ask, why are the Gerudo missing from the Downfall timeline? A common theory is that a lot of them sided with Ganondorf, or rather Ganon during the Link to the Past imprisoning war, and that most of them, if not all, were killed by Hyrule's forces during that war. By the way, don't get that mixed up with the Tears of the Kingdom imprisoning war, that's a whole separate thing. Anyway, the Link to the Past imprisoning war likely put an end to the Gerudo entirely by slaughter, that and or they were banished into exile or just ran away from Hyrule. Remember, this imprisoning war happened after Link fell to Ganon and Ocarina of Time before the events of Link to the Past. So how the heck can they be here in the Downfall timeline? Well, before I get into that, let's look at one last character design, Zelda herself. This iconic shot in the beginning of the trailer is remarkably similar to Zelda being trapped in a crystal in Ocarina of Time, and it's not just the crystal, it's also Zelda's specific clothes that are akin to her clothes from Ocarina of Time. Also, just to make this conversation more interesting, you know what else happens to Zelda in Ocarina of Time? She escapes destruction and learns to fight for herself thanks to Impa. Look at this. There was even a cancelled Zelda game that might have had Sheik that took place after Ocarina of Time's bad ending. My fellow audience, there are clear connections and parallels to Ocarina of Time. As a matter of fact, this game could take place close to the events of Ocarina of Time being before A Link to the Past. But how in the world could that make sense, because Link fights this specific version of Ganon and he doesn't have the Master Sword? Well, I have a solution. I believe there is a new timeline that actually corrects the Downfall timeline and adds to it, making it a more creative outcome and not a what-if scenario cop-out. Allow me to explain. The creation of the Downfall timeline has been unsatisfying to many Zelda fans since it was official back in 2011 with the release of Hyrule Historia. This timeline exists under a scenario that Link was defeated in Ocarina of Time, and Zelda with the sages sealed Ganon before he used the Triforce to bring absolute destruction to the world. This supposedly leads into the Link to the Past backstory with that game's imprisoning war. But to many, it was just kinda lazy and unfortunate that Link, the hero of time, had to die or at least be severely defeated for the old games to exist. If only they could redo the creation of this timeline and make a game that allows Link's defeat to be more impactful. And now here we are. I propose Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, the first game with the playable Zelda, recreates the downfall timeline into a new continuity with a better explanation on Link's defeat. Think about it, all of these Ocarina of Time parallels with characters and situations are the result of a similar yet alternate continuity timeline. It's as if Echoes of Wisdom exists in a new timeline that parallels the events in history of Ocarina of Time, but because it's an alternate timeline, things play out differently than Ocarina of Time. Then, after the events of Echoes of Wisdom, it would lead into the events of Link to the Past Imprisoning War. Before I go more into that, quick side note, I actually proposed a similar idea with Tears of the Kingdom being an alternate parallel reality to Ocarina of Time, and I think that video deserves some more love and attention, so please check that out after this one. I'll link to it up here and in the description. Anyway, if Echoes of Wisdom and Tears of the Kingdom being parallel realities to Ocarina of Time doesn't make a lot of sense, I'll explain it like this. Let's say the events of Ocarina of Time take place in Zelda year 4000. I don't actually believe this, but this is just for the purpose of an example. So, in the Zelda year 4000, Ganondorf Dragmire rises from the Gerudo Desert and pledges false fealty to the king, and then later uses his resources and planning to get a special power, giving him power over the king and Hyrule. A hero would have to rise sometime later with the help of other sages to defeat Ganondorf or Ganon, the evil man assumed to be a king of his own. Those events are destined to happen in the Zelda year 4000 regardless of timeline, but each established reality has slight differences and those events could play out differently, from small changes to larger ones. With Tears of the Kingdom, the imprisoning war happened immediately after Ganondorf swore false fealty and stole a special power, the Secret Stone, yet was temporarily defeated thanks to the sages. Since Link was not there, he couldn't be fully defeated. He would have to be fully defeated more than 10,000 years later. In Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf swore false fealty and later entered the Sacred Realm and received the Triforce of Power, thanks to Link doing all the dirty work for him and then reigned over Hyrule for 7 years. After those 7 years, he would be defeated by an older version of Link, the hero of time. The time travel in this reality creates two timelines, child and adult timelines. In Echoes of Wisdom, let's say Ganondorf rises to power in a similar way to Ocarina of Time. He then probably gets the Triforce of Power and turns into Ganon earlier. And then Link vanishes after his confrontation with Ganon, meaning that Link is at least temporarily defeated for the moment. He also didn't have the Master Sword, which is usually required to defeat Ganon. These events paved the way for Zelda to lead new sages and fight evil without Link, which is a parallel to Tears of the Kingdom as well. Holy cow! Through this apparent defeat of Link, whether he lives or not in Echoes of Wisdom, creates a situation where Zelda and possibly the sages, or some other power like Tri, have to seal Ganon temporarily. Ganon's power starts to leak out over time after his seal, which leads into the Link to the Past imprisoning war, since his followers are spreading around Hyrule in the downfall timeline. Now, if this were the Tears of the Kingdom timeline, Ganon's power would also leak out over time, but instead it would become gloom and malice. See guys, it's all parallel. It's all parallel next to each other in alternate realities. And to make things more crazy, after Ocarina of Time released, we got Majora's Mask, and not too much later we got Wind Waker, establishing the alternate continuities from Ocarina of Time with closely related releases. And now here we are again, getting back-to-back mainline Zelda releases for the first time since 2007 that establish alternate continuities from Ocarina of Time again. Look at that, mic drop. Now, for a closing thought, Link doesn't usually fight Ganon out of the blue. He has to go through dungeons and grow from a simple young man to a courageous warrior. So how did he grow before the beginning of Echoes of Wisdom? And on that flip side, what happens to him after Echoes of Wisdom? Are there entire games or at least stories planned that take place before and or after Echoes of Wisdom? Now that is something to think about. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out all the theories I've referenced throughout this video. I'll provide links in the description and in the ending cards. I also made several Tears of the Kingdom theories on its timeline as well, so if you're into theorizing about the Zelda timeline, check out my other theories on Age of Calamity timeline shenanigans, Ganondorf's legacy after Tears of the Kingdom, and the Light Dragon's paradox. I love making content like this, so consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so I know to make more. Thank you again, and peace out, God bless, I'm out.